It looks like they've finished getting Metal Gear ready.
How do you know that?
I overheard them talking. Where are you now?
Right in front of Metal Gear, but it's strange.
What is?
There's nobody here. No guards, nobody patrolling. It's too quiet.
Maybe because they're all ready. They said they even input the PAL codes.
What should I do?
All we can do is use the override system that President Baker told you about.
But I've only got one of the 3 keys, and besides that, like Ocelot said, there's some trick to using the keys.
Leave it to me.
You got some kind of plan?
Well, I'm in the computer room right now. I'm trying to access Baker's private files.
Baker's files? Don't you need a password?
Of course, but there are ways.
Are you a hacker?
Yep, that describes me pretty well.
Does it look like you can get in?
I don't know yet. I'll give it a try.
I'm counting on you. How's it going?
Not bad. I just got past his 3rd security level. He was a pretty careful guy.
Do you think you'll break in soon?
I never met a system I couldn't bust into.
Okay, keep trying.
Snake, I did it!
You got past security?
Bingo!
Great. So what do you got?
I accessed the confidential Metal Gear file.
So what about the PAL override system that Baker talked about?
I haven't found it yet.
That's what I need to know.
But Snake, I found something else.
What?
The secret behind the new nuclear weapon. Just as I thought, the nuclear warhead is designed to be fired from the railgun like a projectile. It doesn't use fuel, so it isn't considered a missile. That way it can get around all sorts of international treaties.
Pretty sneaky.
Yes, but effective. And that's not even the scariest thing about this weapon.
Oh, I can't wait to hear this.
It's a stealth weapon.
You mean it won't show up on radar?
Yeah. The truth is, they've been working on a stealth missile since the late 70s.
Why weren't they able to develop one until now?
Because of the missile rocket propulsion system. It would be picked up by enemy satellites.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
But unlike a missile, the railgun doesn't burn any propellant, so it can't be detected by any current ballistic missile detection systems.
An invisible nuclear warhead.
Totally impossible to intercept. And on top of that, it's got a surface-piercing warhead designed to penetrate hardened underground bases.
Yeah, we learned that lesson in the Gulf War.
This thing could mean the end of the world.
It's the ultimate weapon. And from a political point of view, it avoids the problem of nuclear reduction and nuclear inspections. Colonel, is this true? Are you listening?
I'm listening.
If word of this got out, it could delay the signing of the START 3 treaty and cause a huge international incident.
Yeah, it would be nasty. The United States would be denounced by the UN. It could even bring the president down.
Did you know this, Colonel?
I'm sorry.
You changed, Colonel.
I won't make any excuses.
Snake, listen to me. This new nuclear weapon, it's never actually been tested, only simulated.
You mean they ran a computer model?
Yeah, that's why they were conducting this exercise. They needed to get actual experimental data to back up the simulation.
What were the results of the exercise?
It looks like it went better than they hoped for, but I can't find the data anywhere on this network. You'd think that data as important as that would be carefully recorded.
It was. President Baker gave me an optical disc with all of the test data.
What? Do you still have it?
No, Ocelot took it from me.
Damn.
The terrorists have replaced the dummy warhead with a real warhead. Once they input the detonation codes, they should be ready to launch.
So you think they can do it?
Well, the dummy warhead was designed to be identical to the real thing, so I think so.
Did you find out how to override it yet?
Not yet. It must be in a separate file. Right now I'm looking through all of Baker's personal files.
We're counting on you.
Well, I found lots of information about that new nuclear weapon. There are 4 stages involved in launching a ballistic missile. The first one is the boost stage. It starts at the point the missile is launched and ends after all the rocket fuel is burned and the missile is propelled into the exosphere. The next stage is the post-boost stage. It starts after all the fuel is burned and ends after the re-entry vehicle is ejected. Next is the intermediate course stage. It takes place after the re-entry vehicle is ejected and lasts until the missile enters the exosphere. Then comes the final stage. It starts when the re-entry vehicle enters the exosphere, and it lasts until it reaches its ultimate target on the ground. Missile defense systems use military satellites to detect rocket emissions during the initial boost stage of a missile. But this new nuclear weapon employs the railgun's ability to fire projectiles at ultra-high velocities instead of using a rocket. That's why it can't be detected by today's missile defense systems. And on top of that, the re-entry vehicle also uses stealth technology. It's so accurate that its 50% zone comes close to 50 meters. That's as good as the best ICBM.
A highly accurate, undetectable, uninterceptable nuclear weapon. We wouldn't even be able to tell where it came from.
And that's not all. A standard ballistic missile uses a 2-stage or a 3-stage solid fuel rocket for its propulsion system. Besides costing lots of money, safely maintaining the solid rocket fuel and readying the missile for launch requires a lot of work. But a railgun-launched nuclear warhead avoids all of those problems. And it's cheap, too.
It's the perfect nuke. A general's dream.
And the world's nightmare. I found out a lot about the arms industry, though. After the Cold War ended, the United States slashed its defense budget by more than 15%. Naturally, the arms industry was severely affected. It resulted in an orgy of mergers and acquisitions. Some of the big arms conglomerates today are made up of what 10 years ago would have been 20 or more smaller arms companies. Armstech is one of those. But we lost our bid to produce the U.S. Air Force's next line of fighter jets. Then we took a stab at civilian applications, but that was a failure too. The company was about to go belly up. Ironically, the Defense Department was in pretty much the same situation. Thanks to big budget cuts, they were forced to turn to the private sector to help fund their weapons development. On top of that, the government began to actively export their advanced weapons technology to the private sector in order to maintain a high standard of quality in the country's defense armaments. Eventually, they decided on a joint development project for new weapon systems between the DoD and the private sector. And since both sides were in such bad financial shape, that's where all the back-scratching came in. So there was another reason for the joint development of Metal Gear, huh? It wasn't just President Baker trying to keep arms tech afloat. I can't really blame Dr. Naomi. I feel sorry for her. Ever since I was a little kid, I always hated my first name.
Hal, isn't it?
Yeah, but I'm not a computer, I'm a human. My grandfather taking part in the Manhattan Project, my father being born on the day of the Hiroshima bomb. I hated every part of that. My name, my father, my grandfather, it felt like all those things were a ball and chain around my legs, dragging me down. But now that I think about it, I realize that I was blessed. At least I know who I am, where I came from. But Dr. Naomi didn't even know who her parents were, what her real name was. She must have been a very lonely little girl.
Otacon.
Sorry, Snake. I guess right now you should focus on re-inputting those PAL codes. Snake, Rex's armor is impregnable. You can't do any damage with the weapons you've got. Rex uses the latest advances in compound armor. The only way you can pierce it is with a high-performance heat round.
So what do I do?
Rex's pilot seat operates exactly like a VR system. It's got multiple sensors connected to a high-tech interface used for the controls. It's completely self-enclosed and shut off from the outside environment.
He's not using his naked eyes?
That's right. So if you could somehow destroy the sensors... Do you see that round plate on Rex's left arm?
Yeah, that thing that looks like a shield.
That's a radome. If you can destroy that thing, it won't be able to use its electronic equipment.
So he'll be blinded.
Yeah, try to hit that radome with a Stinger missile.
So that will stop it?
No. Rex was designed so it can be controlled manually, too.
Oh, great.
The part that looks like a beak is where the pilot seat is. In an emergency, it'll open up. Rex's armor is perfect. You can't destroy it.
You told me that already.
But the interior is a different story.
I get it. First I destroy the radome. That will force him to open up the pilot's seat.
Right. If you can shoot a Stinger missile into the cockpit, you'll destroy the computer control system.
You intentionally designed it with a weak point?
It's not a weak point. I like to think of it as a character flaw. People just aren't complete without some type of character flaw, don't you think?
I guess so. I owe you one, Otacon.
I saw it in President Baker's top-secret files. Rex has a free electron laser mounted on its belly. It's a laser weapon that discharges a laser beam into an electron beam that's been accelerated using giant magnets. It can generate an incredible amount of energy, pretty close to 100 megawatts. That's 10 times greater than any other laser out there. Rex is equipped with anti-tank missiles on both of his knees. They're a laser semi-active homing type that doesn't use wires. The shooter uses a laser illuminator to bounce a laser beam off the target. After that, the missile uses the light reflected off the target to home in on it. Fortunately, the missiles are tipped with heat rounds and not anti-personnel warheads. But if they hit you directly, you'll be sorry. Be careful. The railgun uses magnetism to fire projectiles. By perfecting the process of shell acceleration, the railgun is able to fire a projectile with a muzzle velocity of over 100 kilometers per second. It was originally going to be used as a part of SDI to shoot down enemy ICBMs outside the atmosphere. It's ironic that now it's going to be used to deliver a nuclear warhead. Rex is the first actual prototype model, but they've been doing virtual prototyping for a while now. They pop it into a VR simulation while it's still in the design phase. That way they can make improvements to the design while testing it under all sorts of simulated conditions. So even though it's a prototype, it's extremely well designed. Be careful.